waiting the arrival of Chairman Roberts. But if you'll join us, John Deffenbaugh, would you open us with a word of prayer?
Sure will. Pray. Father, we thank you for the new day you've given us, for the opportunities we have of living this day, this time, in this part of the country. We pray for our country, and we pray that you'll give us wisdom, and you'll give us understanding of what we're seeing before us, and you'll be with the men in uniform around the world serving us. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, today's meeting will change tempo a little bit, and we have with us Chairman Jacobs to present, I assume, 213. Do you want to just stay there?
I can, or I can do this, but where would you prefer I be, Mr.
Abby, where would we? Your preference. What do we need to hit? John.
Here comes the judge.
All right. Which one do you want me to do first, Mr. Chairman?
Well, 213 is first in my folder.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for attending the annual MARTA meeting of the House Transportation Committee. House Bill 213 has really two main parts to it. One is that it is a repeal of the 50-50 split. As you, as members of this committee, will recall, there is a restriction that we've suspended for another 2 or 3 years. How much longer does it go? Another 2 years. That requires that for every penny of sales tax revenue that comes into MARTA, 50% is used for capital, 50% is used for operating. The reality of that is that it first of all, and I think it's time that we start to given that MARTA is working very hard to clean up its own house and is operating very efficiently, implementing some privatization recommendations that were handed down by KPMG, and achieving some efficiencies that way, such that they are operating in the black. I think that as a show of good faith, it's important for us to meet MARTA halfway. And that's what repealing the 50-50 split will do. Another thing I should mention about the 50-50 split is that right now, because MARTA's debt service is very near 50% of its sales tax revenues, they're close to that 50% ceiling anyway. So really, the 50-50 split is more symbolic than an actual restriction on how MARTA spends its funds, because they're spending almost 50% on debt service, which is capital. So, so the reality is that it's time for us to make this change, given that MARTA is working very hard and diligently to clean up its own house. And they certainly do deserve some goodwill from the General Assembly with a measure such as this. The other thing, now I will say that the one thing that the bill does do is put the 50-50 back in place if MARTA fails to do a management. I mentioned the KPMG audit to you. That is the tool that we have used to get MARTA more efficient. There are some very clear privatization and other revenue optimization recommendations in a management audit that was performed back in 2012. Those recommendations are benchmarked over 5 years, and we use that on my committee, the MARTA Oversight Committee, to check MARTA's progress. Where are they on that timeline? They are right on schedule. But that exercise of doing a management audit periodically to see how we can make MARTA more efficient is a good exercise, and one that we should continue with. So we, in the MARTA Act, require them to do a management audit every 4 years. If they ever fail to do the management audit every 4 years, then for the ensuing 4 years, the 50-50 would go back into place. But that would be the only circumstance where the 50-50 split would come back into play. Otherwise, it would be repealed. The other thing that House Bill 213 does is extends out the, right now, by operation of law, the MARTA penny would become a half penny in June, on on June 30th, 2047. That would be the last day that it would be a full penny. It would go back to being, it would become a half penny at that point. Obviously, periodically we extend that out. Because when you issue 30-year bonds, you have to be able to rely on the revenue stream for 30 years, and obviously we're coming right up on 2017, so it's about time to take a look at this again. So we're going to give a 10-year extension there to 2057, which would allow another 10 years, before this becomes a concern for the issuance of 30-year bonds.
Okay.
And I should mention, we're working off a substitute, which is LC 390954S.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Do you have one, Chairman? Number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know this is going to be odd for a guy from South Georgia asking a question about MARTA, but explain to me again, did you say a 30-year bond is why it's currently 2047 and we're coming up on 2017? I get the math there, and you're wanting to give a 10-year extension on the 30-year bond is why you've got it to 2057?
You're giving a 30-year extension. I mean, obviously, bonds are issued based upon future revenues. Right. So if you cut that penny revenue stream down to a half penny, then you lose the ability to issue 30-year bonds unless that date is more than 30 years off in the future. And we're coming up on the mark where counting back from 2047, we're looking at 2017. So we're just extending that out 10 years to enable the issuance of 30-year bonds for another 10 years.
With the anticipation that I may live in an area that has MARTA in the near future, I just want to make sure I had that clear. So thank you.
We are working on that heavy rail line down to Blackshear.
Thank you, Representative Geisinger.
Have we got it now?
Have it.
At the proper time, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion, since this is really a housekeeping piece of legislation.
Right. Thank you. We have one other, Representative Garner.
Thank you very much. I would like to publicly thank Chairman Jacobs for bringing this bill to this committee, and beyond that, for the work that you've done with MARTA to help MARTA achieve the goals, not just of the KPMG audit, but also help them achieve the goals that they've been working on for many years. So I was hoping I could make the motion, but maybe I can second it.
And I would simply say in response to that I am very pleased with where MARTA is right now. Everything that you read in the media is really true about the turnaround at MARTA, and a lot of that is a credit to the new general manager who took over in December 2012, Keith Parker.
Thank you, Representative Garner. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I live almost as well. I do live as far as the gentleman from Blackshear does, and certainly you all have a much better understanding of MARTA than we do, but I certainly understand that many people that come from all over the world to the city of Atlanta experiences MARTA, and MARTA is a big reason why Atlanta leads the South. When they catch shuttles into Atlanta, they get along, and last night late, one of those little trolley cars, it kind of upset me. I'm not used to meeting those, Brother Shad, on a curve, but it was loaded down. So certainly anything we can do to help MARTA helps. As Speaker Murphy in his wisdom saw 40 years ago, helps Georgia.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Burns. Chairman Burns, excuse me.
Thank you, Representative Epps. This is not a gotcha question, and you may have to get it back to me, but at this point in time in MARTA, what part of the operation of MARTA is the fare box paying? What percentage?
About 35%. And of course, Farebox is never going to pay for all of the operations.
No, I'd say it
of
wasn't.
MARTA.
It wasn't one of those. It was just for information. Thank you.
35%.
You're doing a good job with it. I like riding MARTA.
Any further questions, committee? So I'm assuming we're looking at an expansion into Liberty and Tattnall County.
I am diligently working on it. I should have mentioned that line, to Blackshear also goes to Liberty County. So
thank you. All right, this time, Guy Singer will entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that House Bill 213 do pass as amended, I believe. It's a substitute.
We have a motion that House Bill 213 be moved as a substitute on committee sub.
Second.
I have a second for Representative Garner. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Congratulations.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other bill is House Bill 214. I'm missing pages 2 and 3 of my version. However, I think I know what they say.
That takes the Liberty and Tattnall County out of the prior bill.
I'll describe to you what they do, and I mean it's pretty straightforward. House Bill 214, we wanted to keep the 50-50 provision in a separate bill from the rest of what we have here, and these are also revisions to the MARTA Act that are these are specifically part of MARTA's legislative package that we've considered in my committee and decided to bring forward for legislative consideration this year. On page 2 of the bill, whether or not you have it, the one change that's on there is that we reconstituted the MARTA board last session. Those changes take effect January 1st, 2017. One thing that we neglected to do during that time was carry forward the vote of the what was the GDOT commissioner, although we're switching that in this bill to the executive director of GRETA. So what happened was that the MARTA board dropped down to 10 members inadvertently with the bill we passed last year, and MARTA would like to get back up to an odd number of members on their board. So we make through December 31st, 2016, the executive director of the GRETA board the executive director of GRETA, a voting member of the MARTA board, taking the place of the GDOT commissioner who formerly was a voting member of the MARTA board. And then starting January 1st, 2017, that position then becomes a direct appointment by the governor on the MARTA board. The third page, also something that's not handled in the legislation that we didn't think about last year, or something that we didn't think about last year, anticipating what might happen this year. What we did last year was stagger the terms of the various board members on MARTA so that they don't all roll off at the same time. One thing we didn't take a look at was, what happens if we bring on another county? Well, we just brought on another county, Clayton County, and we didn't amend the provision that deals with the 2 new board members for new counties that join the system. So the language on page 3 actually would require that those 2 new board members from Clayton County be staggered so that one serves an initial term of 2 years, one serves an initial term of 4 years, so that they don't both roll off the board at the same time, and we preserve the staggering. From page 3 over to page 4, there's a provision that deals with changing the word bidding to procurement, and this is to enable MARTA to be a little bit more creative with implementing one of their current recommendations that they're working on from the KPMG audit, which is to enable concessions to come in. Obviously, you can't just simply take a low bid in that sort of situation. You want to get various proposals and then, consider really who has the best idea for how to implement that. And so in one section of the MARTA Act, that is the reason we're changing bidding from procurement in a couple of places. The language in Section 3 on page 4 is to mirror the language that's in the bill we just passed with regard to the management audit that's required to be prepared every 4 years. This language is basically just taken directly out of that bill and inserted in the management audit section of the MARTA Act. And then Section 4 of the bill deals with penalties for unruly behavior on the MARTA system, and and infractions such as fare jumping and things like that. We had adopted some language last year that was very general in nature, that allowed MARTA to both create rules and regulations allowing them to suspend people from using the system for those infractions or levy a civil penalty. MARTA wanted that language to be more specific and give them some firmer guidelines as to how to apply those sorts of penalties and also how they could be adjudicated. And so we've kind of come up with something a little bit more comprehensive there that's in Section 4 of the bill. And finally, Section 5 does remove the half-penny option for joining MARTA. There was a lot of back and forth between MARTA and Clayton County over this issue in the negotiations, and it ends up being a bargaining chip that ultimately everybody or Clayton County ultimately came into the system at a full penny. And really anybody would end up coming into the system at a full penny, but they use that half penny for negotiating leverage that really potentially puts the counties that presently participate in MARTA at a disadvantage, given that they are without any question going to be paying a full penny themselves. If you want to participate in MARTA, I think it is fair that everybody participate on the same footing and have exactly the same leverage within the system. And so at MARTA's request, and frankly, this is something that my committee very strongly agrees with, we are removing the half penny option for counties that join the system in the first instance. If you're going to participate in the system, you really need to participate on the same footing as everyone else who is presently participating in the system.
Thank you. This time we'll have questions from the committee if there are any. None? Okay. 20. Representative Carson.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you bringing this bill. Is it my understanding that Clayton County just adopted the MARTA tax? That's correct, right?
That's correct.
And when did that tax, regardless of the referendum, when does that tax start, or has it already started?
I think it started. It started in January.
January 1st? So did they vote a half a penny or a full cent?
A full penny.
Okay, so this change then would not affect any existing counties, is my point.
No, it would not.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions? All right. We have a motion from Chairman Roberts to do pass. Have a second? Second from who? Second from Representative Garner. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. You have a... All right. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, anything?
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.